Shalakaya Chakshurum Litamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanamano Bhishtam Stapitam Nina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadha Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sixth Canto, Chapter 14, the Vitrasura Leela has just taken place, and we heard about the extraordinary devotion of Vitrasura. So this leads to a question of Parikshit Maharaj in the beginning of this chapter. The passage is from verse 1 to verse number, I think, 7. Yeah. So we're going to look at that passage concerning Parikshit Maharaj's question. This is verse 1. Rajastama swabhavasya brahmam vritrasya papmanaha narayane bhagavati katam asit ridamati. King Parikshit inquired from Shukadeva Goswami, O learned Brahmana, demons are generally sinful, being obsessed with the modes of passion and ignorance. How then could Vitrasura have attained such exalted love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayana? Rajas tamasa bhavasya. So, Brahma Vitrasya Patmanaha. O Brahmana, Vitrasya means Vitrasura. Patmanaha means he's sinful. Rajas tamasa bhavasya. Because he's asura, Vitrasura, he's an asura. So they generally have a swabhava informed by Rajaguna and Tamaguna. Rajas tamasa bhavasya. So Rajas tamasa bhava means preoccupied with the life of sin. So Vitrasura had a Rajasic swabhava as an asura, and therefore generally understood to be preoccupied with sin. And yet Narayana Bhagavati Katam Asit Dridamati. How could he have Dridamati? Dridamati means, firm consciousness on Sri Narayana, the Supreme Lord. How is this Dridamati possible for someone with a swabhava informed by Rajas and Tamas? Just like when Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj how it is he became a devotee. So Prahlad Maharaj gave his answer in the first statement, Matirna Krishna Paratasatolpa Mito Abhipadyeta Grihavratana Adanta Gober Vishatam Tamishram Punapuna Sharvita Charvanana. So he told his father, do not worry, people like you will never develop this Krishnamati. Matirna Krishna Paratasatolpa. You will never get this Krishnamati. Neither by your own effort you will get it, neither by the effort of others, such as these materialistic sons of Shukracharya, these materialistic brahmanas. They will not also help you get this Krishnamati. Neither by Prabhupada's language, joint conferences, you'll get this Krishnamati. Just like the social scientists, probably when they were studying the Krishna consciousness movement, they were surprised, how did all these hippies become Hare Krishnas? Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I'm feeling shy now. I'm feeling shy now. Oh my God. We're discussing Vitrasura Leela.
May Jaya Jagannath Prabhu's blessings be upon all of us.
Hare Krishna, okay.
Good cue for me to come in.
No. Okay. All right. Okay, back to normal. So the social scientists, they were probably they were curious how it was possible for these hippies to become Hare Krishnas. In fact, once when Prabhupada was also asked the question, what was his miracle? Because many sadhus were coming into the West and doing magic tricks and so on. So they asked Prabhupada what was his mystic siddhi. And so he kind of waved his arms over the disciples and said, this is my mystic siddhi, that I've turned these hippies into happies. So, but Prahlad Maharaj said it is not possible for someone to get this dridhamati, this fixed consciousness in the Lord, by one's own effort, by the efforts of others, or a combination of both. That is not possible. Why? Griha vrata. Because their vrata is to remain in the house. Griha vrata means their endeavor is to enjoy the material world. That is the meaning of griha vrata. And as a result, that is the first defect. The second defect, adhamta gobir. Their senses are untamed because they want to enjoy. So their senses are always agitated, reaching outward towards the external world. That is the second defect. And the third defect is puna charvata charvadana. Because of untamed senses, they can't give up chewing that which has already been chewed. The same old sense gratification on repeat. They can't give it up. This is the third defect. So they cannot get this dridhamati. Vritrasura has a swabhava informed by Rajas and Tamas. So he is understood to be basically like this. And yet it is saying that he had the dridhamati. So Parikshit Maharaj wants to know how this was possible. So this is not possible, ordinarily speaking. So what is the extraordinary event that could facilitate such high level consciousness, even in a person informed by the lower gunas of nature? Next verse. Devanam Shuddha Sattvanam Rishinam Chamalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunde Charane Na Prayenu Pajayate. Translation. Demigods situated in the mode of goodness and great saints cleansed of the dirt of material enjoyment hardly ever render pure devotional service at the lotus feet of Mukunda. In brackets, therefore, how could Vritrasura have become such a great devotee? So he's juxtaposing Vritrasura, who has the swabhava, rajas and tamas, next to those who have a pure swabhava or pure antakarna. The examples are given of the devas and of the rishis. So they are those who are situated in sattva-guna. That's basically the idea here. Shuddha sattva-nam and amala atmanam is not referring to like the transcendent Shuddha sattva, but to material sattva. That means antakarna shuddhi, their inner world, their heart, their mind, their subtle body is situated in sattva-guna. So this is to contrast them against rajas and tamas of the previous verse. So they are Shuddha Sattvanam, they are Amala Atmanam, they have pure antakarnas. Even for persons with pure antakarnas, Bhaktir Mukunde Charane, Na Prayena Upajayate. Generally, bhakti will not manifest, bhakti to the lotus feet of the Lord, Mukunda, will not manifest even with those with pure antakarnas. So this is important point, that even if you have pure antakarna, doesn't mean bhakti will manifest in that heart. Sometimes the belief is there. Just by purity, then naturally the bhakti will come out. No. Shukadeva Goswami had no maya. He never identified with the material body, and still he was not a bhakta. He was not a bhakta until he got the association of Srimad Bhagavatam from his father. So pure antakarna does not mean bhakti will manifest. That is also not possible. So by juxtaposing Vritrasura, who was informed by Rajas and Tamas, next to the Devas and the Rishis, who are informed primarily by Sattva-guna, and saying that even these persons with pure antakarnas, we don't see them with bhakti. So how is it possible for someone situated in a lower position than them with impure antakarnas? How can they have bhakti? This implicitly, this will be said later, but this implicitly implies the independent nature of bhakti also. Bhakti, like the Supreme Lord, is independent. Ahetukiya pratiyata is independent like the Supreme Lord, and therefore it can manifest anywhere. Just as Krishna can manifest in the prison house, so this bhakti can also manifest in the antakarna of an impure person. Therefore, someone like Vritrasura can have it. And if bhakti doesn't desire to do so, it will not manifest in the antakarna of a pure person who has antakarana shuddhi. That means this bhakti is independent. A pure person may not get it, and an impure person may get it. That is the decision of bhakti, specifically in the form of sadhu sangha. So this is clearly being indicated here in this particular verse. No purport from Srila Prabhupada also here. Next verse. Rajobi samasankyataha parti bhair iha jantava tesham ye kechane hante shreyo bhai manujadaya. In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a very few are human beings. And among them, few are interested in following religious principles. So now, in order to demonstrate the rarity of this bhakti, he wants to give a hierarchy of living entities. So first he says, Rajobi samasankyatai parti vair iha jantava. So here on the earth, you will find that there are as many living entities as there are atoms. So that's the first statement. Of them, Tesham, of these living entities, which are as numerous as the atoms, there are few who attain the human form of life. And out of the few who attain the human form of life, there are few of them who actually strive for Shreya by following Dharma. So how rare is this bhakti? That is the indication of this on these next few verses. There are so many living entities, as many as the atoms, and only a few of them get human bodies. And out of the few who get human bodies, only a few are doing Dharma. Hardly anyone is doing Dharma. Only a few are doing Dharma. Next verse. Prayo mumukshavas sham kechanai vadvijotama amukshu nam sarashteshu kashten mucheta siddhyati. Translation, O best of the Brahmana, Shukadeva Goswami, out of many persons who follow religious principles, only a few desire liberation from the material world. So, prayoga mukshavas tesham. So of them means of those humans who follow Dharma, which are already few in number. So tesham, of them, they're only prayoga mukshavas, kechanaiva dvijotama. Of them, there are only some who desire liberation. Mamukshu nam sahrasheshu kashtem mucheti siddhati. Among many thousands who desire liberation, one may actually achieve liberation, giving up material attachment to society, friendship, love, country, home, wife, and children. And among many thousands of such liberated persons, one who can understand the true meaning of liberation is very rare. So of those who desire liberation, mamukshu nam sahrasheshu, out of the many thousands that may desire, kashtembu cheta siddhiti, hardly anyone is becoming siddha. Siddha here means jiva mukta, one who's liberated in the material body. Okay, next verse. Muktanam api siddhanam is a very famous verse, Srimad Bhagavatam. Narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishrapi mahamune. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation. So mukdana api siddhana, amongst those who are jiva mukta. And I think in the commentaries, actually, it also indicates of those who have attained atyanti mukti, means liberation into Brahman. Narayana parayana, hardly anyone is a devoted to Lord Narayana. Sudurlabha prashantatma kotishrapi mahamune. So, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful, prashantatma, are extremely rare. So Prabhupada, following Sri Vishnu's commentary, there's a long commentary here, the essence of which is as follows. There's Gyan without bhakti and there's Gyan with bhakti. So those who do Gyan without the bhakti, they're wasting their time. According to Brahma's statement, that is like beating the husk after the grain has been removed. So those Gyanis who reject Bhagavan altogether, and just by the process of Gyan try to attain mukti, they're beating the husk when the grain has been removed. That is a waste of time. So then there's Gyan with bhakti. Only by Gyan with Bhakti can that Gyan produce a fruit. So that Gyan with Bhakti has two divisions. One division is the Gyani who thinks that the form of the Lord is material and it's just a useful alambana. Alambana means like a mind support for attaining liberation. That is one category of Gyani. And another Gyani thinks that the form of the Lord is real. So of those Gyanis who think the form of the Lord is simply an alambana made of the elements of Maya, then they fall down from their Jiva Mukta state. That means they use bhakti to attain Jiva Mukta status, but they fall down from that Jiva Mukta status because after attaining it, they reject the form of the Lord because they have no bhava for that form, considering it to be Maya. So that is the famous verse from Bhagavatam. Ye anye aravindaksha mukta marina swai asta bhavara vishuddha buddhaya. What is the next line? Yeah. Aruhya krishna parampadam tata patanti adananta tirushna. This verse is very famous. So these persons, they're vimukta marinas. They think they're liberated. That's because they actually are liberated. They're jiva muktas, but they're not out of the material energy. They're just liberated while in material bodies. They have not yet left material bodies. So they think that they are liberated, but they have impure intelligences. Avishuddha buddhaya. What is the impurity? Tvai astabhava. They have no affection for the Lord. That is the impurity. Because I think the form of the Lord is Maya. And the nature of the Gyani Jiva Muktas is they have disgust for the forms of matter. Nirvana nam Gyana Yoga, Nyasi nam Iha Karmasu. When they get adhikar for Gyan, then they develop disgust for the forms of matter. That is a fact. Hold on, my little thing here is about to boy. I'm going to sit low. Tired of sitting. Got old people's knees. 2. Okay, there we go. Aruya krachena param padam tata. By hard effort, they come to the parampadam, jiva mukta status. But again, they fall down from that position because of considering the form of the Lord to be material. Srila Prabhupada also, I think Sri Vishnu also, Avajananti mamudha, manushim tanumasritam param bhavamajananta mamabhutameshwara. This is a Gita verse where Krishna says, when I appear in human form, the fools deride me because they don't know my transcendental nature. So the result of their conception of Krishna, mogasha mogakarmano mogagana vichetasaha, rakshasha masurim jaiva bhakritim mohinim srita. The result of their conception is they don't achieve the fruits of their processes because they commit aparad to the Supreme Lord. And as a result of their aparad, bhakti retracts her grace upon them, and those processes do not produce their fruits. So the Gyanis who do bhakti, but consider the form of the Lord to be Maya, they also become fruitless. So then there are the Gyanis who consider the Lord's form to be real. So of those Gyanis who consider the form of the Lord to be real, that Gyan produces fruit. So that verse, those verses from Gita are verses such as Bhakti amama mijananti yavamyaschasmi tatutaha. That by bhakti, one attains me in the form of Brahman or me in the form of Bhagavan, they enter into me. So these Gyanis with bhakti, they also, who believe in the form of the Lord, they also attain the fruits of their process. There's one other category that's mentioned at the end of the commentary, that of these Gyanis who accept the reality of the form of Bhagavan, they may by chance get the association of bhaktas. And by that chance association with bhaktas, they develop bhakti for that form of the Lord, which they consider real, but for which they were not previously attracted to. By that association of bhaktas, then they develop bhakti for that Lord, according to the type of sangha they get. So, at least in Sri Vishnu's commentary, he said if they associate with Shanta bhaktas, they get Shanta bhakti. They associate with Dasya bhaktas, they get Dasya bhakti, and so on. So the idea here is very straightforward, that even if you are liberated, there isn't a natural affinity for Bhagavan without the association of bhaktas who give that affinity for Bhagavan. So the verse that is quoted in this regard is from the 5th canto, chapter 5, verse number 2. Mahat Sevam Dwaram Ahur Vimukti. Mahat Sevam means by service to the Mahats, by service to the Mahats. Then Dwaram Ahur Vimukti, the door to liberation is open. So as the verse continues, there are two types of Mahats, the Gyanis and the Bhaktas. These are the two types of Mahats. And according to the type of Sangha you get, then you develop that type of awareness for Bhagavan. So the awareness for Bhagavan, the attraction to pursue a path to achieve that form of Bhagavan, that is in accordance with the association that you get, clearly being mentioned here. So here, a demon situated in Rajas and Tamas, he has a bhakti. Those who pure antakarnas, they don't have the bhakti. And this bhakti is so extremely rare, it gives a gradation of living entities. How then can this demon have the bhakti? That is the next verse. So we'll just look at them straightforwardly. We're on verse 6, 2 verses left. No. So Vitrastu Sakatam Papa Sarva Loka Patapanaha Itam Dridamati Krishna Asit Sangrama Ulbane. Vitrasura was situated in the blazing fire of battle and was an infinite sinful demon, always engaged in giving troubles and anxieties to others. How could such a demon become so greatly Krishna conscious? Second question. And the last verse. Atra na samshayo bhuyan chotrum kotu halam prabho ya parushena samare sahasraksham atoshayat. My dear Lord, Shukadeva Goswami, although Vitrasura was a simple demon, he showed the prowess of a most exalted Kshatriya and satisfied Lord Indra in battle. How could such a demon be a great devotee of Lord Krishna? These contradictions have caused me great doubt, and they have made me eager to hear of this from you. So some of the summary points from this passage is that, number one, bhakti is nirguna, clearly. Bhakti is not of rajas, tamas, or sattva. It is in an ontological category distinct from the gunas of nature because it is the internal energy of the Lord. Another point derived from this passage is that this bhakti, like the Lord, is independent, and therefore it doesn't depend on material qualifications in order to manifest its influence, which is different from the processes of Gyan and Karma, which in fact do depend on material circumstances to function, such as the antakarna shuddhi the antakarna being pure. Bhakti doesn't require the purity of the antakarna in order for it to appear and manifest its influence. The other thing that we get is that this bhakti is so rare that even persons who are jiva mukta, persons like Shukadeva Goswami, persons like the Kumaras, they are Shuddha Sattvanam, they are Amala Atmanam. Even they, it is very rare to see them with bhakti, which means that bhakti is not part of their nature. If bhakti was part of their nature, it would just come out. But it doesn't come out until they actually gain the sangha of bhaktas. That last point is going to be implied. It is mentioned in the commentaries, but it will be shown to be the case when Shukadeva gives the answer which concerns the life of Chittaketu, who got the association of Narada Muni and Angira Muni, by which he gained the consciousness of a bhakta. Otherwise, it's not possible. So that is some of the points that we derive from this important passage of, this important passage of the Bhagavatam. This passage of the Bhagavatam is actually quite famous. And Jiva Goswami has done a pretty, not big, but he's done an analysis of these verses in his Bhakti Sandarbha to establish the points which we've just now articulated. So we're going to stop there. I mentioned it was going to be a short class and had an awkward moment when my Guru Maharaj just appeared before me and I got a little paralyzed. Okay, so question is there.
Hi, Prabhu. So two questions really. One, the first one was this idea of how bhakti doesn't require the antakarna to be purified for it to manifest. We've heard this. And it brought up this discussion I was having with this one devotee about how we can chant purely even if we're not pure, because the Shudhanam can we can chant Shuranam if the intention is to please Krishna while chanting the holy names, right? And this is something I've always understood from like hearing from you, but I couldn't really think of Shastric references. And also it's true, right? Like you don't have to be pure to chant purely, correct? Because you can chant with the proper intention, with the proper Sambandha Gyan, and then your Nam, even though you still have material desires, your Nam Seva is pure. That's my
Is that the question?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the question. And also, do you have any specific references that I might be able to share with this devotee? Because he didn't accept what I was saying, which is fine.
So the holy name is always Shuddha. The holy name cannot be Ashuddha.
Mm-hmm.
How can you say the holy name is Ashuddha? Is it possible? The holy name is Krishna. It cannot be Ashuddha. So the holy
But then
name
we
is
hear the three distinctions of the name.
so the holy name is always Shuddha. First of all, that point should be understood.
Okay.
The holy name is always Shuddha. It cannot be Ashuddha. It cannot be impure.
Mm.
So these statements, the Na Aparad, Namabas, Shuddhanam, they refer to the awareness of the individual, Jiva. So anyone who chants the name is chanting Shuddhanam, because the name can only be Shuddha. Also, the reason for this is also because it is not possible for us to chant the holy name also. Ata Shri Krishna Namadi Nambave Grahyam Indriyai. Sevam Umukha Hijrihado. What's the last line? Swayam
Eva Spurtiyada.
Swayam Eva Spuratyada. So this verse says, Shri Krishna Nam, etc., cannot be grabbed by the material senses. Right? That's what the verse says. Nagraham Indriyai, the senses, Indriya cannot grab the holy name, etc., of Krishna, because the holy name of Krishna, etc., is in a superior ontological category than the Jiva. So we cannot actually chant the name. This is very hard to understand, actually. This thing is very hard to understand. So the name self-manifests on the tongue of one who has seva mukha. Seva mukha means the desire to serve, or the eagerness to serve. That eagerness to serve, of course, is coming from consciousness being turned toward God by the association of bhaktas. For those who have seva mukha, then the name can manifest there. And gradually, swayameva sparati, that they can get they can like realize God through that chanting of the holy name. Otherwise, how is possible that Gajendra offered prayers to Krishna, and also Bharat Maharaj, when it's in the deer body, he chanted the holy name. Deer tongue cannot chant. The elephant tongue cannot chant. So how do they chant? Both these examples are given by Jiva Goswami's commentary to this verse to show that the name is like everything in the spiritual world, is independent and has to sort of self-disclose itself. Self-disclosure means just as the sun rises by its own power, the name is also manifesting by its own power. But it manifests for those who have seva mukha. And that seva mukha comes from bhakta. So in that sense, anyone who chants the holy name, that is due to the influence of a seva mukha that has come from a bhakta. And that allows, the holy name becomes agreeable to self-manifest there. So when we say Nam Aparad, that means the person who is chanting Nam is also doing Aparad. So the name is pure, but the person is also doing Aparad at the same time. And so because he's also doing Aparad at the same time, that holy name is not manifesting its influence because it's retracting its mercy. So was it the second shower or the third shower? I think the third shower of Madhurya Kadamini. That is the section where Sri Vishnu gives an analysis of Anartha Nivritti, and he describes the 4 categories of Anarthas, and one of them being Aparad. So he has a long discussion on Aparad and the holy name in that context. So the holy name is pure, but it retracts its mercy from that person who does Aparad. When that person who does Aparad, the holy name will not manifest its full mercy to that individual. So it doesn't mean that the holy name has become impure. That means the pure holy name is being chanted by a person who's also doing Aparad. And so the holy name is retracting mercy. Example given by Sri Vishwanath also is like a merchant. If you go to some merchant's hotel, I forget the exact, I'm going to say hotel, and he gives shelter to you, but later you offend him then he'll say, now I'll not give you shelter since you're acting like this.
Mm.
Then later you would have to pacify the merchant. And after you pacify, then again, he agrees to give shelter. So like this, when one does aparad, then that name will not give its full mess. And then someone does namabas. So namabas means he has no full awareness of what he's doing. But it is saying from Shastra that this namabas even gives extraordinary effects. The case example, of course, is Ajamila. Ajamila was chanting namabas and he got extraordinary results, as we already studied in the beginning of the 6th canto. How could he get that extraordinary result from namabas? Because the name is still pure. The name is pure and it gives that influence because he was without offense. And even the semblance of devotion is pleasing to God. Just like Putana. Putana showed up as a mother, all right, like a mother. So that was an Abbas. She wasn't actually a mother. She was a Shachi. She was a witch, came to kill Krishna. But she showed up as a semblance of a mother. So Krishna was so happy, even with that semblance of being a Brijbasi mother, that he gave her extraordinary mercy. Aho Bhakayam Sanakala Kutam, etc. Extraordinary mercy she received just by a semblance. So the semblance of the name, that means someone doesn't know what is the name, but he has a semblance of devotion because he associated with some bhaktas, or he gets some, without bhaktas sangha coming somewhere along the line, that this can never happen. He gets some bhakta sangha, he's chanting Nam, looks like a devotee. He's not really a devotee in his inner consciousness, but he's chanting, and Krishna accepts that semblance, and that person also gets extraordinary results. So what to speak of a person who's chanting the name Shuddhanam as a devotee? He's not offending the name, and he's not just showing up as a semblance of devotee. He's an actual devotee, and then he chants. What to speak of the effects that can come from that? So that's my general understanding. The name is always Shuddha. Just like bhakti is always pure. But Kapila Dev speaks about bhakti and the 3 gunas of Prakriti, right? Sattvika bhakti, Rajasika bhakti. He speaks about this in chapter 29.
Yeah.
But that bhakti cannot be sattvika, it cannot be rajasika, tamasika. So that refers to the person who is performing the bhakti, not to the bhakti itself. So similarly, the name can only be Shuddha. When we qualify it as aparad, abhasa, or Shuddha, that was referring to the awareness of the individual chanting the name.
Okay. So thanks for that clarification. So then just a quick refinement. Is it possible for someone who has material desires to have a window of awareness that is Shuddha? Like maybe for some portion of his day, he has this window where he's in a Shuddha state of awareness. And then the rest of the day, he's just like busy Maya. Do you know what I'm saying? Is that possible theoretically?
I don't think so. I may have to sit with it a little bit longer, but I don't think so. So the thing is material desire. So this statement is told by Srila Rupa Goswami, right?
Yeah.
What is the verse? Bhukti mukti spriha yava pishachi hati vartate, right?
Yeah.
Bhaktir tava bhakti sukha satra katama buddhayo bhavet. How can the happiness of bhakti appear in the heart that it has desire for bhukti and mukti, which is like a witch, right? So the thing about desire is that, or we should say desiredness. The thing about desiredness, following the statement anya abhilashita, desire. The thing about desiredness, it is like dye put in clean water. So if you put dye in clean water, it just starts to pervade the whole thing. The whole thing becomes colored by that. You understand? So desire for bhukti and mukti is like dye being put in the consciousness or the psyche. And it just pervades the whole thing. So even though the material desire may not be in the forefront of psychic awareness because you're doing your spiritual practice, it's still coloring the whole thing. So my intuition tells me there's something like a window of pure awareness as such, that bhakti is coloring the whole thing. But this is the advantage of bhakti. We've quoted this verse many times now, from 5th canto, chapter 19. Krishna, the residents of Jambudvipa are praying like this, that those who approach God with material desires, they are actually very foolish persons. And the Lord certainly fulfills their desires, but saying that they are not getting what they want by the fulfillment of desire. We've discussed this verse a few times now in the course of this 6th canto, right? What does a person want by the fulfillment of desire? He wants Atma supersedity, isn't it?
Mm.
The only reason we want our desire to be fulfilled is so we can feel inner satisfaction, right? So Krishna certainly fulfills material desires, but in fulfilling it, he sees that they have still not gotten what they want, which is Atma supersedity. So seeing that they approach him with material desires, but they have not gotten what they want, he forcibly gives his lotus feet. Because by giving his lotus feet, then they get what they want, which is the Atma supersedity. And then naturally the material desires goes away. So this is the advantage of bhakti, just doing bhakti yoga to fulfill even material desires. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udari dihiti vrena bhakti yogena yajita purusham param.
Yeah.
So so we may not have a window of pure awareness, but if we're only taking shelter of bhakti to even fulfill material desires, the advantage is that Krishna, seeing that we keep approaching him and we're not getting what we want, he gives us forcibly what we want, which is his lotus feet. And having experienced the satisfaction, then we can relinquish progressively material desires. So I don't know about a window of pure awareness, but to have Shraddha and Bhakti means the faith that simply by doing Bhakti, everything will be obtained, right? Shraddha Shabde Vishwasha Kahe Sudrida Nishcha. We have the firm faith that simply by this Bhakti, everything will be obtained. So we may not have pure awareness because we have our psyche is afflicted with all sorts of desiredness, which is coloring the whole thing. But we are not agreeable to do anything else for the satisfaction of our desires. So this is very good. My consciousness is colored with material desire, but I will not take shelter of someone else to fulfill my desire. I'll not take shelter of another path to fulfill my desire. Because we have Shraddha, so we say, I'm not agreeable to that. If someone says, do Gyan Yoga, do Karma Yoga, we say, we're not agreeable to that. Why are you not agreeable to that? Because I'm Krishna's Bhakta. So I'm going to go to my Krishna for fulfilling my desire only. So that is very good. That is also very good. Now, it is not the ideal Shuddha Bhakti, but you can become Shuddha Bhakta by that only. Because Krishna is saying, oh, my devotee, very foolish person. He thinks by fulfillment of desire, he will get what he wants, but he's not getting what he wants by the fulfillment of desire. So I'll give him what he wants. He wants that inner satisfaction. I'll give my lotus feet because he's only taking shelter of bhakti. And then he becomes pure progressively. So that is the meaning of Nishta Ruchi Asakti. Progressively, you become pure. You're getting more and more taste for, or more and more Paresha Anubhava, realization of Bhagavan, by which you are given the power to relinquish material desire. Otherwise, you cannot relinquish it also. Without the experience of higher beauty, you cannot give up a lower thing. So that is not possible also. So we should have the firm faith that by doing bhakti, everything will be had. That at least we should have that much faith. And we should not be agreeable to take shelter of anyone else in any other path than bhakti for fulfillment of anything. Even if it's a mundane thing, no problem. But just say, I only agree to come to you, Krishna. That's it. And then Krishna will do his magic. So at least let us be bhaktas, that much we should be bhaktas, okay? Let us say we should write contracts to Krishna, put it in writing, my contract, and give it to Krishna. I'm putting this in contract that I am not agreeable to approach anyone else but you for anything. I will go to you for all my desires. I will not take shelter of another path. I will suffer here on the path of bhakti before I'll go to these other paths to satisfy the desire. We should write contract like that. And even though we may not, our psyche colored by other things, because that contract is there, we've written with Krishna. That is actually what Diksha is supposed to be. Then let Krishna do his work, gradually giving us more and more Paresha Anubhava, by which we will give up the desire. I would say like this more.
Thank you. That was a very nice, elaborate answer. I'll have to go back to listen to it again also, but that was really nice. Also, it reminds me of that time when those college students came and you made them sign a contract that they'll use their life in Krishna's service.
Oh my God, I can't believe I did something
like that. You random college students, you had them sign a contract saying, I won't waste my life or something like that.
That's
you had them sign
funny,
it. Anyways.
That's so hilarious.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That was it.
Siddhahari saying, what about jobs in yoga? You know, in other words, if you have a job, if you do yoga, it's like you're taking shelter of something else. Yeah, I have to say with that honestly. I ask myself this question regularly also, but you're not really taking shelter of a job or yoga for inner satisfaction. You're not agreeable to that. That this yoga will give the inner satisfaction, this job will give the inner. We don't think, no, I don't think any devotee actually thinks like that. So just because you have a job or you're doing yoga for your health or whatever it is, that is not, that is called as Sangha Siddha Bhakti. You understand? Sangha Siddha Bhakti? Swarup Siddha Bhakti means bhakti itself. So that is the direct angas bhakti, Shravan, Kirtan, Smarana, etc. This is called Swarup Siddha Bhakti. Then you have Sangha Siddha Bhakti, means something that is giving support to your bhakti. So that may be a job, that may be yoga. It is not directly bhakti, but you use it to support your bhakti. That is called as Sangha Siddha Bhakti. So that Sangha Siddha Bhakti is also counted as bhakti only. So the devotees who have developed Shraddha, they may be doing Sangha Siddha Bhakti. But they will not think, oh, by this yoga, I will get the goal of life. I will get artha by yoga. I will get artha by doing job. No devotee thinks, no devotee with Shraddha thinks like that. So they're doing this thing because that is Sangha Siddha Bhakti. That supports their bhakti. If they start to think by this thing, I will actually get the happiness, then they don't have Shraddha, or their Shraddha is conventional Shraddha, is not Nirgun Shraddha. You know these two types, right? Lokika Shraddha, Nirgun Shraddha. Job and yoga is just a stopgap measure until we get real ruchi. Yes. So once you get, that's what I'm saying. You're saying, use the word ruchi is a nice word. By increased paresha bhakti paresh nubhavo viraktir anyatra chaishatrika ekakala prapadyama nasha natashus tushti pushti apayondughasa. You know this famous verse. So just as a person on the path of bhakti experiences progressively three things. What is that? Number one, bhakti. Number two, paresha anubhava. That means realization of God. And number three, virakti. Just as a person who is engaged in eating, he experiences three things progressively: satisfaction, nourishment, and freedom from hunger. So you eat a little bit of grain, you experience a little bit of satisfaction, a little bit of nourishment, a little freedom from hunger. And if you eat a nice, big old fat plate of prasadam, you feel full satisfaction, full nourishment, and get free from the hunger. So when we do more and more bhakti and we get progressive experience of the beauty of Krishna, which you've termed here as ruchi, that is a good term. Then that ruchi gives us the power to forsake all other things except for direct Swarup Siddha Bhakti. But until then, we are supporting our Swarup Siddha Bhakti with Sangha Siddha Bhakti, a stopgap measure, as you said, giving support until we get the self-disclosure of greater beauty of Krishna. So no devotee with real Shraddha will think like this. I will get the artha by job and yoga. No Shraddhavan devotee thinks like this. So that's why I'm saying, even if you are materialistic, all of us have material desire. I'm willing to bet. But we should at least have Shraddha, that conviction that I will not go to anyone else but Krishna. Let me suffer here also as a bhakta, waiting for Krishna to fulfill my desire also. But I'll not go to anyone else for this fulfillment. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, Sataguna, by following the instruction of Rupa Goswami. And then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. That's from the NOI preface. That's a nice reference. Okay, I don't know, Mukund, if you still have something, if you're still around.
Yeah, I'm here. I was also just raising my arm when you were speaking to this idea of a contract to never turn away from Krishna, because that I have that verse, Virachaya Mai Dandam.
Yes.
Which is a beautiful verse speaking about how the Chataka bird never looks anywhere else except for to the clouds for mercy, even if the clouds give punishment.
Yes.
So, yeah.
That is beautiful word. That is Shraddha.
Yeah. And then I was also just going to ask, and I think I was not fully attentive during this part when you were speaking in the class, but about this whole topic of bestowal of bhakti. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit to like what are we receiving if we come in contact with the devotee who's not pure, like what is it exactly that we are receiving from them? Are we actually receiving bhakti, or are we receiving some impressions that will lead
Okay,
us
yeah.
in
So
that direction?
to receive bhakti here means to receive awareness of Bhagavan. That is the meaning. So the root disease of the conditioned souls is that we have an absence of awareness of Bhagavan. That is called Bhagavat Vaimukya. There's an absence of awareness of Bhagavan. So what we receive from the devotees is the awareness of Bhagavan. Right? So the meaning, this verse is quoted, Krishna Bhakti Jama Mula Hai Sadhu Sangha. The root cause of Krishna Bhakti is Sadhu Sangha. So the verse quoted by Mahaprabhu, the famous one, Bhava Pravargo Brahmato Yata Bhavech, Janasha Taryachita Satsangama Yari Tathaiva Sagato Paravareshe Twai Jayate Mati. Jayate Mati. The awakening or birth of Mati. Mati means Krishna consciousness or Krishna, awareness of Bhagavan. When the living entity, time for liberation has approached, the wandering living entity, when his time for liberation has approached, he gets sadhu sangha. Sangama yarhi tataiva sagato. Precisely at the moment when he gets sadhu sangha, precisely at that moment, tada eva, right at that moment, jayate mati, awareness of Bhagavan comes. That doesn't mean it's reception of bhakti or bestowal of bhakti. He gets awareness of Bhagavan. And from that awareness of Bhagavan, he moves towards Bhagavan, gradually. Srila Rupa Goswami is given the stages of development from Adal being the first stage. Adal means in the beginning you get sadhu sangha, that is the meaning there. And from that sadhu sangha, you get shraddha in the statements of scripture, etc. And then again, you do sadhu sangha in the form of accepting a guru padashraya, receiving diksha and shiksha and so on. And then, and the rest of the process, bhajana, kriya, and so on. So when we get, your question is, what if they are impure? But if they have shraddha, that shraddha in Bhagavan, they may also have some limited power to give that shraddha. That has to be the explanation. Otherwise, so many people's stories will have to be denied. I know, I wouldn't say many, but I know quite a few devotees who became bhaktas by associating with people that they didn't even know were bhaktas because they were breaking the four regular principles. They met a bhakta in the club or in the bar, but somehow this bhakta kept talking about Krishna this and Krishna that and Krishna the other thing. And so the person like, what is this Krishna? And then from that, they become inquisitive and they become bhaktas. So that would have to be denied if you say, well, they have to be of the highest level order in order to give that mati. No, mati means awareness of Bhagavan that can come from anyone. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Chaitanya Shikshamrita. So he speaks about 3 levels of devotees and their power to give Krishna consciousness. And this is a unique insight. Like I haven't seen it anywhere else so far, at least. Jiva Goswami also talks about it in the second part of Bhakti Sandarbha, about the power of devotees to give Krishna consciousness. But this level of clarity I didn't get, so I have to go back and read it because I have to admit I was just kind of glossing it. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that if you have prema, you have like unlimited power to give Krishna consciousness. If you have bhav bhakti, he says the bhavuka devotee, he can bring a complete non-devotee to the stage of ruchi very fast. And then from them, bring them to the stage of bhav bhakti. And he says if they're a sadhaka, a Vedi type or Raganuga type, they can give shraddha. They have that power to give shraddha. He has told this thing. So you can't give what you don't have. That's the basic logic here. So if you have shraddha, then you can give shraddha. Why not? Now your power to give shraddha will be limited according to the advancement of your consciousness. But if you have shraddha, then that shraddha you can also give. Why not? So this beginning shraddha stage is mentioned by, it's mentioned by Krishna to Uddhava. You know the verse Jata shraddha makatasu nirvinna sarva karmasu. Veda dukhatmakam kamam. You know this verse, I used to quote it all the time. Still a go-to verse. So there in the commentary of our devotees, if you go and see it, they describe the shraddha of this person. So what is their shraddha? That let me rot in hell also for my sins gratification, but I will never give up the lotus feet of Krishna. So I know many devotees who are doing sense. I know devotees now who are doing heavy sense gratification, but they're not agreeable to give up their Krishna consciousness. They do a little chanting here. They at least come to kirtan. They still maybe even only offer their food. They can't do anything else. Maybe they do a little hearing. Maybe they sometimes come to this class also. That's the extent of the Krishna conscious engagement they can have. Even if they're not doing anything, but they identify as a devotee. So that is also an anga of bhakti. There are 9 angas of bhakti are there, right? And one of them is called this dasya, right? That is one of the angas of bhakti. Srila Jiva Goswami, in commenting on this dasya, he says simply by the identification of oneself as a devotee, you can achieve perfection. He writes this sentence. I'm going to go learn this sentence. It's kind of inspiring. He says simply by the identity, the thinking, I am a Krishna's bhakti. He said, by that only you can get perfection also. That is also an anga of bhakti. He says this thing. That's a very encouraging statement. So even one is not doing any angas of bhakti, but that anga he's doing, I am Krishna's bhakti. So that even that person can give that to someone. You can't give what you don't have. That's a simple logic there. So if you have that, you can give it. But your power to give it will be limited according to your advancement in Krishna consciousnness. This is a basic logic there. It has to be, there's one type of pramana called anupapati. Anupapati means that there's, how do you describe it? As this is the only explanation given what we see. The example is given as Devadatta is hefty, he's fat, but he doesn't eat in the daytime. Then by the logic of anupapati, he must be eating at night. Because there's no way you could be that hefty and not be eating. So if he doesn't eat in the daytime, he must be eating at night. So by this pramana, we have to accept that even devotees with quote unquote lower consciousness, they've distributed Krishna consciousness to many people in this world. People have developed mati from such people. So by that pramana, it must be accepted that they also have power to give Krishna mati. But to what degree and to what extent, that is according to their advancement. But you cannot deny it because that is visible before our eyes. We can look at it and see it is happening. So otherwise, devotees, and sometimes I listen, they say, you have to be Mahabhagavad, only the Mahabhagavad, this, that, and the other. But you're like, look. And then with their own 2 eyes, they will deny pratyaksha praman. They don't want to accept anupapati praman. They won't accept that praman. But the pratyaksha praman, they will deny. Pratyaksha praman means look at all these iskons, and I haven't posted it. I'm going to post it today. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, period. The end. Otherwise, how this Ratha Yatra is going on in New York City? This is the only good thing the city sees in a whole year. Honestly, there's so many festivals that happen in the city through the year. They're all extremely degraded, like extremely degraded. Meat eating, debauchery in the open streets, nudity, they're completely foul and degraded. This is the only good thing the city sees. And people, you can feel it in the ether, how much joy people get just dancing with the devotees, singing the kirtan. So how can these sadhus deny that these devotees have given this? Maybe they weren't the highest level devotees, but look, they will deny pratyaksha praman and not accept anupapati. They'll deny, look, with your own eyes you can see. They'll say that is not real Krishna consciousness. Hari, even your disciples do not chant Hari Nam so much. So you will deny pratyaksha praman right before your eyes, you deny it. And you will say only the Mahabhagavad. Then how you explain this? How you explain it? Then you have to give some other explanation. Then you will do some word jugglery, some quote this verse, that verse, create bewilderment for some simple person like me. Well, look, I can see with my own 2 eyes. Look, there's literally thousands of people chanting Hare Krishna. How you describe this? So that's going to be my answer to that. By the logic of anupapati, hey, if Devadatta is not eating at night, or eating in the daytime, he must be eating at night. So yes, these people may not be the highest level devotees, but look what they have done. So that means they also have power to give Krishna consciousness, that awareness of Bhagavan. That is what it means to bestow bhakti, awareness of Bhagavan. Hari Sham is saying,
Thank you.
Rajivan, the devotees in the bar are undercover agents. That's a positive spin on it. Hari Sham says, just also from a very practical point of view, the effect of meeting a devotee who has some advanced taste in bhakti is undeniable, versus someone who is at an initial stage of absorption. Absolutely. The more the ruchi of the devotee, the more their association makes an indelible impression in the heart, right? The less evolved devotees might only be influential enough to convince us to take a book or visit the temple, right? The ruchi devotees' association might be enough to convince us to move to Vrindavan, on the other hand, right? I saw the New York Rath Yatra before I came to Krishna consciousness in 2006, and I was blown away. I was staying on Fifth Avenue with a non-devotee friend from college, and the Rath passed by, and it was so impressive. Just see. Yes. There might be some details for this discussion, like, well, to give Shraddha means Shastriya Shraddha, so they have to have at least Shastriya Shraddha to give that, and so on. You can nuance it a little bit. But the fact of the matter is that there are plenty of non-Mahabhagavats, I'm sure, that can give it to whatever degree they have it. That is certainly, by Anupapati Praman, we have to accept. It cannot be denied. Otherwise, you would have to deny Pratyaksha Praman also. Your own two eyes you would have to deny, which is also par for the course in postmodern world. If you look like a girl and someone says, I'm a man, it's like, but my Pratyaksha Praman, nope, that is rejected. So maybe this is our way of getting afflicted with that also. Okay, I don't see anything else in the chat box. So maybe we pause here for today and try to continue tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat, family, thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bolo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hari, Hari, Hari.